fucking name!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out, thanks and appreciation to Guns of Navarone, RMP, Troy Shuka, Bo Snail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. I'll raise the mic on whoever is in Google and Discord so you can enjoy their conversation while I set it for today's live show.
Trying to remember it.
Trying to remember.
Unfortunately, our power went out yesterday, so I missed most of the show.
Oh, it was Rumpus coming on saying you have to imagine.
Yeah, there was a few quotable things yesterday from memory, wasn't there?
It was great.
Did you make any notes?
I have them right in front of me.
What were the what were the quotes?
Well, well, go on. Sorry.
I was saying, so you're actually admitting you have to imagine the globe now?
Yeah, I have to listen to the show again to finalize everything, but basically he admitted to saying you need to use or have your imagination. And I wrote it real quick, and I put excellent Rumpus. And then it was about Einsteinian is one mass at one time, or Newtonian is mass attracts mass, more than one. And he admitted the difference. And then he basically said, you have to use your imagination, and Nathan jumped all over it.
Yeah, I don't think they realize what they're doing to themselves.
So 4D world, one mass, 3D world, two mass. Einstein, things do not attract. Newtonian, mass attracts mass. Two different maths, two different concepts, basically. And he's trying to say that they work together when they're opposite. They're totally opposite.
What he means is, I will use them in tandem when required.
Correct.
Mic check.
Hey.
Hey, Neil.
Hey, Neil.
How are you? Get another rent-a-car.
So there, maybe we can go into a little deeper, just because this is something I think I could learn more about. So with the Einsteinian general relativity and his field equations, I'm not sure exactly what and all that encompasses when they say field equations, but we're talking about orbits, we're talking about one single mass at a time, and yet here, for years, they stick into Newtonian and saying that gravity is proven because mass attracts mass, and yet in Einsteinian, it's not space-time warping.
There is no space-time in Newtonian.
I know, but in Einsteinian, they say there is.
Yeah.
But then they say it's imagination because you got to imagine it's a straight line, but it curves. Well, that's like them saying, we live on a ball, but I don't see the curve. Yeah, but it's curving. Just imagine it or whatever, right? It's the same little game. You have to imagine everything.
Yeah. What about you, Tenth? None of this stuff really phases me. It's inconsequential to me my worldview, my general life. Yet to the people who come here, it's oh so important that we understand how to use our imagination and reify pseudo-Ramonian conceptual force, space and time bending into 3D Newtonian mass-attracting mass when required to explain away how we have gas pressure here, for example. Now, none of those things really concern me. Beyond the show, I literally don't give them any thought.
Yeah.
So that's why they say they have to first gain our trust.
Yeah. Once they gain our trust, they can then tell us that we need to use our imagination.
Yeah.
Really sounds like a religion to me.
It is a religion. It's a philosophy that's been reified into existence on the one hand, but for the people who come here, it's beyond that, because they've reached the point where they've had the contrary points put to them, they've rejected them and reasserted their fundamentalist religious belief. So at the point that they come here and defend the indefensible, they become zealots. Religious zealots. Their religion.
It's. I agree with you on your statement, Nathan. But because of the show and what the show's about, it's very intriguing from that sense. So I didn't think about the rest of the day yesterday. But getting ready for a show today, I said, let me go over those notes. That was pretty good. So I didn't even know prior to your show that there was something called pseudo-Ramonian force space. I mean, I don't think the vast majority of people care or even know what that even means. But when you are debating what the nature of this earth is, from my viewpoint, I come that there's a creator and God made it, and I use Genesis as well as other scriptures as my baseline for that. So that's where I was comfortably, no worries, still no worries. Then I come and say, oh, they're debating the nature of the earth, and let's see what each side has to offer. And then I hear for the first time pseudo-Romanian force space. I go, what the heck is that? So I didn't go to college. I didn't do any of this stuff. So to find out, because I did hear Newton, right, the whole Apple thing and everything, but I didn't give more than that. I didn't care about it. I want to play sports. So to get into it deeply the way your show allows it, it's an education to me that's priceless.
It's the same for the guy who came here to argue it, right? With his plumb lines not being plumb and an assumption of gravity when digging through mountains and gravitational fields and all sorts of other nonsense. And he didn't understand any of it. Just parroted it off some website that said that they account for gravity. Didn't know what gravity was, didn't know how to define it. When I called it pseudo, he blamed me. Well, you call it pseudo. It's like, no, Einstein calls it pseudo.
Correct. Yeah, I remember that show too. That was another good one. Yeah, they're just parroting.
But that's what I like about this platform. There's something for everybody, for the mature people that understand, for the people that just got into it, for the people that's more or less on the fence. Everybody takes something out of it.
Not very often that Pete and Peter catch my attention, but they made a video saying they're only doing it for the money, and specifically referenced both sides in terms of their acquirement of recompense, financial gain, whatever you want to call it, and
That's a
remuneration, whatever. Anyway, my attitude towards them was quite harsh. In other words, typically when you come across somebody that offers a service, no aspect of their service is free, right? Whereas here, most of what I do is offered up for free. There's no obligation whatsoever to contribute anything, right? And the same applies to the people who come in as guests, which is their perspective, because I think they were either offered a position on Fight the Flat Earth to debate whatever subject, and they turned it down on the basis that they're not being paid and he's using their time to make money. Now, I don't actually disagree with them on that score. It's like, well, that's perfectly reasonable if you feel that way. In other words, if your show is a monetized show and you're not paying me, all you're doing is using up my time to make money from. And if you object to that, that's perfectly reasonable. But by the same token here, I'm not twisting anybody's arm to come in, right? Nobody's arm's getting twisted to be here. It's entirely no obligation. Doors open if you want to walk in and challenge the subject, which is of paramount importance, as opposed to the merchandising, the super chats. Smash the super chat, by the way. You know what I mean? The passion for the subject comes realistically second, because if you want to, let's be a bit more agreeable to Pete and Peter and say, yeah, I am here for the money. Yes, I do want to make a living. Why wouldn't anybody want to make a living? Now, could you say that it's the best chosen career path to make lots of money? Absolutely not. Without question, there are better things I could be doing to make money. However, my passion for making videos, i.e. videography, and my passion for the subject of the nature of the Earth is what drives me to continually make videos, plumb a lot of the money I actually make back into my studio, my equipment, keeping things maintained. All of those things cost money. I mean, my example to them was, will you blow up guitars free? Like, obviously, it costs money to do this. You need a computer for the start, and everything else that seems at the start less important becomes more and more important as you become more and more into it, or it becomes your job. But by the same token, I had to also disagree with them when it came to the same exact scenario when they're criticising Fight the Flat Earth. As a YouTuber with a YouTube hat on, I say more power to you. Now, both Craig and I have both attempted, unsuccessfully, to make YouTube careers. And then, for whatever reason, this subject is the one that we ended up in. Now, for him, he's tried to do it in gaming. For me, I tried to do it in hi-fi. Now, both were unsuccessful. Both are now making a living from doing what we do on YouTube. Now, as far as that is concerned, everything else aside, subject matter aside, more power to you, Craig. I wish you every success. In the same way I wish any other YouTuber every success. Because we're all in it together, right? We're all YouTubers. So from that position, more power to you, man. I hope you do well. Hope you grow your channel. Same goes for anybody else. Doesn't necessarily or specifically refer to Craig, just YouTubers, right? We're all struggling to make our way in this very difficult platform to make your way in. It's very difficult to become a success on this platform. You have to put a lot more in than you get back out, right? Now, for some people, they'd look at that and go, you're nuts. Just go out and be a rep again. You'll make a lot more money. And the answer to that is, yeah, I would. But am I passionate about it? Do I want to get up every day to do something for someone else? No. Do I want to get up every day and do this? Yeah, absolutely. And it pays my bills. Well, that's absolutely wonderful. That's something to be praised. Very few people in this world do a job that they love. Very, very, very few indeed. Now, me, I absolutely love my job. I couldn't be doing anything else. And therefore, I'm going to make that into something that I have to make money from. Because otherwise, I'd just be out on my ear with nowhere to live and nothing to eat. Like everybody else who has to work, which is everybody. So from that perspective, Pete and Peter, you shouldn't really assess it. Because all it means is someone like me is going to turn around and disagree with you on somebody subject matter-wise we disagree with. That would be Craig. Yeah, we disagree with him in terms of the nature of the Earth. And we would provide evidence on both sides to argue our cases. But when it comes to a YouTube perspective, I'm going to side with him, not you. Because he's just working. This is his work, same as it is for me. And why would I criticise somebody for just putting their time and effort into trying to build a YouTube channel when I'm a YouTuber? I'm not. I'm going to encourage it. Which means you put me in a position where I've got to actually commend and praise somebody on our opposing side in the debate, I might add. Because they're on my side as a YouTuber, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I know that in saying all of this, Craig doesn't do that. Craig criticises us as frauds and charlatans that shouldn't be making money while he sticks his hand out, which is just hypocritical. Me, I'll say, no, on a YouTube level, I'm more for everybody trying to make their way. I encourage people to monetize their channels. Why wouldn't you if you could? You know, if there's money to be had from it, why wouldn't you just take it? Seems nonsensical not to. But that's just my mentality. Obviously, I want to earn a living. But there we go. That was my little address to Pete and Peter. Feel free to check out their video, which is titled They're Only in It for the Money. Which I'm not.
Hey,
I don't
Ryan.
understand why people take offense to that. What's the big deal? However you want to make money, that's your business, and it's nobody else's business. Nobody screams at me for installing carpet for a living. I mean, I scream at myself because it's a painful job. But I got to do it. I mean, I wish I was doing something I enjoyed. I do not enjoy putting down floors.
Right.
But it's something my father taught me. I have a trade. I can make it anywhere in the world. But, you know, hey, more power to you, Nathan.
I'll give you an example that parallels it, but is on a different subject matter. So, as you all know, I've been treating my studio with the money that I earn. Huge amounts of money put into making the audio and sound on the show better. Well, where does that money come from? Well, from making the show. But it's being pumped back in. Now, The acoustics themselves has involved hundreds, if not thousands of hours of watching acoustician videos. Videos that are on YouTube for free, where I can gather information on how to acoustically treat my room so that my job functions better, right? That's the only purpose. Now, were I to approach one of those YouTubers and say, what about asking a question? So, like, the panel come here and ask us questions or put things to us. I put something to an acoustician, and he gets back to me and says, yeah, in order for me to solve your specific problem or answer your specific question, right, I want money. And I turn around and go, what? You're joking, right? Surely, like with your YouTube channel, you just do all this for free, right? How dare you even infer that I should have to give you money for your time, your information? Why would I assume that? That's outrageous, right? No, that's what he does for a living. Now, in order to promote what he does for a living, he puts himself out there for free, or she, on YouTube. That doesn't mean that everything they do in that regard should be for free. Now, in terms of what I do, there's no aspect of what I put out that has to be paid for. All of it is free. Yeah? It's not like with somebody who's paralleled with this, but actually can say, well, okay, if you want to come here and put a question to me on the nature of Earth, I want £5 an hour. Well, I don't do that. The panel's open and I'm not charging for my time. But their view, Pete and Peter's view, is, but you're getting our time and you require it, therefore you should pay us. Now, if he's been proactively contacted in order to get him on to Craig's show, then I agree. You know, that is your prerogative to say no because you're not being paid. Because if there's money being made, why shouldn't you be making it? I agree. Also, there's things that you can benefit from not being there, i.e. your promotion of the channel, which I believe was Craig's reply in one of his comments. He made very succinct and concise reply in terms of building promotion for cross-pollination on YouTube. And again, I have to agree with him. It's like, yeah, he's right. There's not necessarily just a financial motivation for going on someone else's channel. You might want a question answering. You might want to debate the subject. You might not have anything to do with money, like me when I'm debating the subject going through your mind when it's actually occurring.
Nathan, who's Pete and Peter?
A couple of flat earthers.
Oh, God, I've never. I'm trying to figure out who you're referencing all this time. I go, who the heck are these people?
Yeah, Pete and Peter.
They do. Yeah, they do a lot of. How can I say, demonstrations?
All right, so one of the golfers who was watching me work with the golfer I work with approached the golfer and said, is he a coach? And it looks like you're doing quite well. I might even call him and see if he'll help me with my game. And so that news came back to me. And I said to him, well, yeah, I could. I go, what do they charge these days? And so, so he told me what this type of coaching goes for. So, yeah, if you want to make a living, you pay your bills, absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is when people are too lazy and they live off the welfare and don't work. So I agree with Neil. Who's it anybody's business how someone makes money as long as people are attracted to the product line that that person is putting out, or the services that that person is offering. Because if you don't like it, don't come. But if somebody else wants to come and contribute and help, and that's the way the world is, and leave it that way. Don't try to change it.
Exactly. I'm very grateful to YouTube that they've actually put facilities in place for me to make this financially viable. Without the super chats, this wouldn't be financially viable. Without the memberships, this wouldn't be financially viable. I'd be doing something else because I could not afford to do it, which would mean there's no Flat Earth debate daily. Well, you might go, well, yeah, but you were making money from it, so good riddance, Pete and Peter, right? Or many people would say, oh, that's a bit of a bummer. I really enjoyed watching it, even though I didn't pay a penny.
I can't imagine how stupid this sounds to them now, because they make money, right? How do they make money?
I'm going to tell you
Or
why.
for us.
People don't look at it as work, and that's the problem. I don't see anybody going after actors. They pay top
but you
dollar
see-
to go see their movies. Everything somebody does, there's work involved. I can't imagine the amount of time Nathan puts into the show. but I enjoy the show, and it doesn't cost me a freaking penny. And if I could, I would donate to the show. So I don't understand people's mentality. Mind your freaking business and go on with your life. Go earn a living how you want to earn a living.
Well, the reason behind it is because they've arranged to do a debate and then had second thoughts on the basis that they feel that Craig is exploiting the globe Earth versus flat Earth debate for money. And comparatively, he's saying so am I. And you could view it that way. You could say, yeah, he's making money off this subject and the debate thereof. Yeah, I am. Okay.
But you would have made more money if you were on Craig's side rather than this
yeah,
side.
I know Craig's doing better than I am financially. That's besides the point, though. That immediately puts it within the realm of flat Earth versus globe Earth and the debate itself. So it's like, well, you could argue the ways and wherefores of being on side with the current worldview and how that's definitely going to be more profitable than contradicting it and disagreeing with it. That's probably going to be less yeah, obviously. Yeah. Well, therefore, if I was only in it for the money, you could argue, as you are, I'd jump sides. Just start promoting the globe because it'd be far more financially beneficial.
People do it for other reasons too, though. Like flats. Hey, Righteous Force, is Earth flat? Watch, you won't even answer.
Maybe he's busy. Why are you asking Righteous
Busy.
Force?
Yeah, I've been muted for longer than 24 hours.
I just unmuted
apparently
you.
Because God told
me
me to.
Oh my God, not a...
That crit.
Yeah. That's a huge problem. You don't see that on the global side.
The Earth is a globe
They
again?
are united. Say again?
I think you're thinking he's someone else, Neil.
Talking about Righteous Force.
Yeah.
What's his problem?
Apparently, this globalist told me to leave the chat yesterday, right in the middle of live stream. I'm like, sorry, this isn't your safe space. You can leave, but I'm going to stay here. And then apparently that means I'm not being including of other people. Meanwhile, Mr. Giggles was in chat, and he's posting like Craig's Among or Crits Among, all these other things. And he gets banned, but comes right back in a minute later with a fresh account and taunts me. Like, oh, you're in live mute and I'm back on the server. So I ask him, hey, how did I violate?
You got to straighten it out.
Okay. No, it can't be straightened out because this is. I would straighten out right now. Is the Earth flat? Righteous Force. See, it's breathtaking, isn't it? The silence is breathtaking.
Anyway.
See, you don't see that on the globe side. You won't see like pretend globers who are actually flat earthers trying to silence and mute their own people because someone said, hey, don't expect this to be a safe space. And even if it's a language barrier, anyone knows what a safe space is. It means where people form an echo chamber. So after the Nathan Oakley show is over, this place turns into an absolute shit show. A globalist echo chamber. And that's a problem.
Don't go on it. I don't go on that no more. It's there, but I can't listen to that nonsense.
Yeah, Neil, I've talked to you about this before too, and I expected things would be getting better by now, not worse.
Better how? What do you mean better?
Well, once you have the chance to talk to these people a few times and be like, hey, this is what's going on, joining the show a few times, actually talking with globalists and presenting an argument for flat Earth, you think, okay, yeah, sure. He's had enough interactions with other globalists that it's not all globalists that he's trolling or whatever, or being hostile towards. It's only the select few that seem to stay in text chat, post ridiculous things. But still, that wasn't enough either. I'm just looking for a solution. It was really what I'm looking for at this point. What would you
server
guys
is
do
it?
if you were me?
Whose server is it?
Betty's.
This one.
Betty's.
We'll take it up with Betty then. Contact Betty, let her know, and because that's her server.
Or Righteous Force. He's a moderator in the server.
Yeah, he basically takes control of it. Betty turned it over to him.
Right, so speak to Righteous Force then.
Yeah, he said the Bible basically told him to mute me.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, don't worry. Why do you think I don't go on there much? Mostly I get muted on there if I just say facts about the Globers.
About the Globers?
Yeah. Well, if you're going to show something moronic, I'm going to straight say out it's moronic. It's a fact. But I'll get muted
Hold on
for
a
flipping
second.
2
Hold
weeks.
on. So Righteous, you're the only one hearing from God, Righteous. The
Oh,
Bible
God.
tells you to mute somebody. The only ear that God's speaking to? Come on, wait.
Yeah, he cited the Bible too, and then said these are the Bible passages to mute people. And because I'm not being subject to the higher authorities of the server. And I didn't listen. Even though I explicitly said, what's the problem with me? He doesn't have a problem with me. It's that it's other people that I'm speaking ill of. What other people, I asked him. It doesn't matter, he said. God is not a, we basically cite Acts as God is unbiased. So I was like, are you trying? So first of all, he said that you're the authority on this server. I've harmed other people in some way. You won't name who those people are. And your intellectual firepower for this is God told you to. And then he stops responding.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I think
And
the
then
best
I
would be
get
to
trolled
talk
by a
to
bunch
him
of
and Betty.
globalists in live mute.
look, you need to take it up with Righteous Force. I mean, I'm happy for this to just...
Yeah, I'm
about
trying
be-
to.
Yeah, but you're doing it
I
during
would
the
think
show.
it would clear it up really quickly if you would just say the earth is flat. And I'd be like, okay, so we agree, we reach some sort of acceptance here. Like, then maybe his idea
right,
and my
great.
idea are
Scientist-
colliding somehow, and we need to work it out.
Handle this on the
But
after
the
show,
other day he was
Fred. It's
telling...
time to start the show.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, I
to you.
gotcha.
I don't mind talking about it in the pre-show or even in the after show, but by the same token, this is something you need to take it personally with Righteous Force. This is clearly an issue you have personally with him, so you need to take it up with him. And in
Well, not
terms
just
of...
me. Yeah, Flatzoid and Neil and multiple flat earthers.
No, they're empathizing with you. Don't
I
drag
got
them
it.
into this.
Let the show begin.
Just let me.
I'm going to
finish.
disconnect. I'm not going to join the show anymore until I'm off this live mute.
That's your prerogative.
So I'm going to be bowing out for a while.
Sure. What I'm saying is,
I got you.
That's your prerogative. But what I'm saying is, a better idea would be to discuss it with him, right? Preferably not on the live show. That's the best course of action.
Yeah, I heard you.
Or not. Obviously, it's entirely up to you which you do.
Roger that.
I'd prefer we were all one happy family, but we're not. Unfortunately, that's not the way of the world.
How boring it would be if we all thought the same.
Indeed.
Yeah, imagine everybody punning.
It would be awful.
Yeah, no one can take your punerator from you.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by Arwin, 10th Man, Brian's Logic, Flatsoid, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good Friday, everybody.
Ni hao.
And Neil. Neil is here as well.
Yeah,
And Neil.
Yeah.
Indeed. I knew I missed somebody. It was because Neil was blocked by Arwin trying to join during my intro, as he does every single day. So I couldn't see anything. But there we go.
Sorry.
Yeah, just
Yeah, Arwen.
for future reference, just wait till the intro's done if you're going to join the Google Hangout, like Adam's done, because then it makes life a lot easier, because I can't... I'm
What
looking at a
happened?
camera.
I was blocked.
Not you, Neil. Not you.
You were apparently blocked.
I have to let you in.
Yeah.
One of the new security measures for Google is that I have to approve every single person who enters the Hangout, which means that if you have the link, you don't just get to jump straight in, which is a very good security measure. But it means that if I'm looking at a camera and talking to an audience, obviously I can't see you and let you in. And then when I do turn the camera to the screen, I can't see anything on it because it's all blacked out because it's waiting for you to say, yes, let Arwin in. Anyway, that's fascinating stuff for the beginning of a live show. I'm sure this is riveting for the live audience.
Yeah, let's dig deeper.
Indeed. Let's talk more technical stuff about the live show, and it's... No, let's not. Let's do a bit of housekeeping. I'll
I'll say one more thing, Nathan, then. I purposely have to wait now, because you do rush to get here for 2, but I have noticed your protestations about arriving at bang on 2, so noted, sir.
Fair enough. That's good. I'm pleased that you come slightly later. But I haven't actually said it directly
So
to
do
Arwin
I.
until today, because it's always, I don't want to talk about it because it's something technical, and now I've spent 3 minutes on it in the beginning of the live show. But nevertheless, let's move on and do housekeeping. Any evidence of a physical, geometric, sphere edge, horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Nonsense.
Nope.
Not in Nottingham.
Absolutely
Definitely, that's a no.
About from Discord. Signs of Earth curvature, physical, geometric, sphere edges?
Nope. Nope. Absolutely none.
Okie dokie then.
So hang on. So then, what's blocking the bottom? Excuse me.
Angular resolution limit.
Here we go. What's the blocking the bottoms of boats and buildings then, according to the ballers?
Nothing's blocked. According to ballers. Well, they don't have anything to assert anymore. So it's a paradox. What are they going to claim? Physical Earth curve gets in the way. Yeah, we don't have a physical sphere edge for a horizon. We've debunked it. So what are they going to
They're in
assert?
the
Well, they
grey
don't.
area.
What are they asserting right now? How many people in Discord are here to hold up an Earth curve calculator? Who's got a tumbleweed sound effect? Anybody want to hold up an Earth curve calculator and tell us how the horizon's getting in the way of stuff? Anybody at all? Anybody at all? Was that your tumbleweed, Flatsoid? Very good. Let's move on. Any evidence of any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Well, you would need a physical shape to have that. So obviously they don't have physicality, so they wouldn't have axial rotation.
Well, to imagine axial rotation versus measuring axial rotation, I think, is what I'm thinking right now, because they're saying the Earth is turning, but we have no evidence the Earth is turning, so we have to imagine it. And how they do it is we look at the stars that are moving, and they reverse that and say we're moving.
So you can look at the president and say, "You're the president."
What does the president have to do with it?
That's how logical that statement is.
Well, if I look at the president, I could say he's the president. What's wrong with that?
No, you look at him, you can say, "You the president." It's the same as looking at the stars and saying, "Look, the stars are moving, so the ground is moving."
You got me on that one.
We mentioned this the other week, and I think didn't we have the drone coming in, Nathan? And
Yes.
it was running around my head addressing that, because we spoke about the drone and being having to move at 1,000 miles an hour to prove one way or the other, or to demonstrate or whatever. But it got me thinking, going back old school again, and I think it was on Discord. I rambled on a bit about it, but I went through Aries failure, and that I think is the greatest proof to demonstrate who's moving, either us. To me, it's not a science. I was chatting to John about it. It's not science, but it's a very logical demonstration that. It's very clever wording again, isn't it? If we look at the way history presents all this information to us, it's worded as Aries failure, but failure being that he failed to demonstrate that the Earth was moving. To me, that's quite a logical demonstration to use to determine whether it's the stars moving or the Earth.
Adam, are you talking about the drone that's hovering at the equator of the presupposed Earth that's supposed to be rotating at over 1,000 miles an hour?
Yeah, that modern solution to the problem was what, and as I said, look back in history, and there seems to be a much more simpler and logical demonstration that can answer the question for you.
Did you want to detail Aries failure, or do you want me to?
I've got some pictures actually from. I'll see if I can.
Michael
stick them in
Bowden.
Master B.
They're from Michael Bowden, by chance?
No, because I couldn't remember his name. Back in the blue screens and all that sort of stuff, and I couldn't find that video anywhere, Nathan. So it was one that popped up from the Geocentric Society, I think it was.
Correct.
I've got
While you're digging that out, just for clarity, they still believe the Earth is a sphere. They just don't believe the Earth is moving to cause the movement in the stars. So while Adam's doing this, what Aries failure is essentially is an angled telescope that, when filled with water, would slow the light travelling through the scope down. Now, if the telescope itself is physically moving eye on a rotating Earth, which causes the apparent movement of the stars, as is asserted in the heliocentric model, then as the telescope moves, the light would hit the sides and you wouldn't see it. However, if you fill the light and it's actually the light of the sky, the lights in the sky moving, then you'll still be able to focus on it still, regardless if you've got it angled correctly and you fill it with water. It doesn't change the movement of the light as the telescope moves because the telescope isn't moving, and that's the result he got. So if I can just pin Adam's screen.
Yeah,
Right,
so
there we go.
So simply, look, if the starlight's coming in, if the star is moving, then when the starlight hits the top of the telescope, it's fine. The telescope's still stable, so it travels to the bottom still. But if it was the telescope that's moving, and when the starlight hits at the top of the telescope continues to move. The light continues on its straight path. Now, it's this differential between the speed of light in water and in air that creates this difference of where it hits at the bottom. And Airy's failure was his attempt was to calculate this movement via the movement of the calculate the Earth's movement via this differential in starlight hitting. But what he found was it didn't do anything. It still hit the bottom, which showed that the Earth was stationary and it was the stars that were moving. There was no movement of the light. It still carried on the same path.
Indeed. And further to that, if there was, which is being demonstrated to the contrary by Aries, then we'd have a 15 degrees an hour deviation of things in the inertial reference frame as Earth turned underneath them, like this drone that you started the example with. So the drone would launch, and it would stay in lockstep with the stars as Earth turned underneath it, if it was in a separate reference frame. But it isn't. So it's not. Earth isn't turning. Quick shout out, I am Bowden, #1fan. Thank you very much for the super chat, really appreciate the support. Also, James Richards, thank you very much indeed for the support. He says, Earth is obviously flat. Your other senses tell you it's motionless. Profane and vain babblings and science falsity, so-called, is the only thing that convinces you otherwise. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, and I completely agree.
I have something to say on that Aries failure, or on the what Adam said about it. I agree that it's a very, very good observation that does show that we're definitely not moving, but it's not the best one. The best one is the lack of observable Coriolis effect.
Agreed, and that's why it makes the top 3, but this is definitely noteworthy. It's something that hasn't been mentioned since about 2016, I might add. But there we go.
Well, it took me down memory lane. It's one of those things you find, like I said with Malcolm Bowden, isn't it? You stumble across it when we were first all, there was an out there, and it's such a solid demonstration. It's a few years. I tell you what's the worst bit was having to go back and remember it, Nathan. You know, because it's which is moving, which isn't moving, trying to work it out again, get it square in your head.
Right. Yeah, we're not moving. The stars apparently are. Be nice to know what they were, but we don't. Roy Stimaz, hopefully I'm saying your name right. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. No message, just gives me money. Really appreciate it. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What is the sun?
No idea.
Is it even tangible?
No, it's not tangible.
So you wouldn't be able to get a distance then?
Yeah, you're right. We'd need to know what it was first before we can draw a tape measure out to it. If we can't draw a tape measure out to an intangible object, then how are you going to measure it?
Imagination.
Well, presupposition, actually.
Well, how is the Globers saying with confidence that's 93 million miles away? What are they using for that then?
Or the R value. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius, utilised to acquire a claimed distance to the Sun by assuming Earth is a sphere with this radius value, 3959, then assuming Venus has the same radius value as Earth, and then applying Kepler's third law to give them these distances. So that's where they get that from, 10. Any evidence of the R value?
So what happens when there's no R value because there's no R?
Then their claim falls to pieces. The distance to the Sun is
that's my
is
best
void.
argument against it then.
The distance to the Sun is void.
What?
The distance they claim to the Sun, 93 million miles, is void. Any science?
Also a big.
Go on, Brian. Go on.
Sorry, can I just say something before you go
yeah,
on? Nathan?
Go ahead.
They're also using the thank you, the speed of light calculation, which is based on Kepler's analemma being correct, and us being a particular kind of an averaged distance from the Sun. Because in his analemma, as we observe with the Sun, the opposite way around of what we observe is that we're getting closer to it at one time of year and further from it another time of year. So they averaged out that distance, and with a lot of other convolution, they came up with, like, they're using the speed of light that's based off of an averaged distance of the Earth in the heliocentric model from the Sun throughout the year. So the speed of light, when people think it's an absolute definite, it's only based on us actually being on a globe with a particular radius at a particular distance throughout the year at particular times, particular distances from the Sun throughout the year at particular times, and us going around the Sun. And if all that is not true, then the speed of light is also not true.
Indeed. That little assumption falls by the wayside, or to put it another way, is also void. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well, outside of Eddington's observation, which is actually all they actually have anymore, because that is the only real backing for Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity, that Eddington witnessed the bending of space-time, because a star was seen in a position to kind of seems to come around the back of the sun or move in a different position from the sun due to supposedly the bending of space-time. But they never actually, they never validated that it wasn't refraction. So that's a bit of a, that's all they actually have. Rather than being sarcastic about it, that's all they got.
What would the hypothesis be for that, though?
Well, all they can do is observe. They can't do anything after that. So they observe and declare, as Slick James used to say.
He's not playing. Brian doesn't play that game. He just lays out the details. He's not going to play baller.
Brian, just to on your speeder, I think you'll find it is a constant, because I've highlighted it here. Look, in 1983, the meter was defined as the length of path travelled by light in a vacuum at an interval of that many seconds, fixing the value of the speed of light. So instead of it being previously measured as to how many meters it was going per second, what they did was rigged it all so that the two become interchangeable and they're based on each other now. So therefore, the speed of light can no longer vary and is fixed.
Hey, it sounds familiar. Is that a bit like archaeologists dating the rocks based on the fossils that they find?
Yeah, because the fossils have got are in certain types of rock, Nathan. So you can say how old they are based on the rock they are in.
So they know how old the fossils are.
The rock is.
They know how old the fossils are, which they date the rock with, because of the type of rock it's found in.
Got it.
I see. Exactly. And with the speed of light, it's fixed based on their speed, and therefore the two become interchangeable or the same.
And I think that's where they get the phrase, it's set in stone.
Kind of like they pre-assume a vacuum here in what Adam showed. What, a vacuum of what? Where is this vacuum? We see, we're supposed to, a space. That's the issue, isn't it? You know, all these things are delta X arguments. So everything they come up with is delta X. They never prove X.
Exactly.
You know, that's why they're holding on to Eddington, because it's delta X.
Yeah, like gas pressure gradients. How do we have gas pressure without a container? Well, we've got a gas pressure gradient. Hold on, that's a delta of gas pressure. You need gas pressure first. How do you have gas pressure? Well, we've got gas pressure gradients. Let's argue about that all day. A delta of the thing that isn't possible. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container? For all those people who believe in space being a vacuum in the sky.
If you go up Mount Everest, the air gets thinner.
And?
I don't know, that's what they tell me.
Yeah, that's saying there's gas pressure gradient. Yeah, that's right. So that's a delta of gas pressure. So we've got gas pressure up high too. That's nice. Yeah, we'd need containment for that.
But atmospheric pressure.
Thinner. Why isn't it all the same? We're in a bubble. Why is the air pressure not the same all around? Ridiculous. Come on.
But atmospheric pressure, Nathan, it's not the same as gas pressure. I mean, I have a religious belief that they have to be different. Why would atmospheric pressure have to be dictated by the laws of nature, just like normal gas?
Atmo means air. Sphere is the fundamentalist religious zealot belief that they're trying to prove. So assuming that air stands in violation of gas law by taking the shape of a sphere arbitrarily when it doesn't have containment is what atmosphere is asserting when you use that word. Air, however, fills the availability of volume it has to fill. That would be the space it has to fill. And if the sky was a space... What do they call the sky vacuum again? Oh yeah, space. If the space was a space, then gas would fill it.
Yeah, where's the gas giant gradients, Neil? We're supposed to have the gas pressure gradient here, right? So where's the gas pressure gradient on these gaseous planets?
But that's just an assumption that they're gas violating the second law of thermodynamics in a sky vacuum also. Again, preposterous.
I don't know. If they're gas giants, then wouldn't you wouldn't have like a sudden cutoff point, in my opinion.
They
Like
wouldn't
with
be.
the Earth
They wouldn't
supposedly
be
being
there.
the cutoff point, and
They're
the
not-
gas being transparent here.
You're keen to beg the question. No, they're not gas giants in a sky vacuum. Why? Well, because if they were gas in a vast empty space, then they'd fill it.
Has anyone demonstrated gas falling down before at 9.8 meters a second and staying down?
Not what gas does. I can hear an air compressor in the background, right? That's not what gas does.
That's pressure, yes. That's actually gas pressure. Can you believe it?
Yeah, and when you pull your trigger, forget it, when there's no paint in it, does what come out the end fall on the ground? Or does it just vaporise and disappear completely, the high pressure gas that you're dispersing into the low pressure gas? Does it just equalise, or does it fall down, go boom boom?
It does what gas does best. Move in
Right.
all directions.
So the gas expands in all
sorry.
directions, doesn't go down, go boom boom at 9.8 metres per second.
Definitely not.
I
But
can
it
hear that
doesn't even
hissing.
go down, go boom boom. It goes towards the direction, towards the center of a sphere. It's even weirder.
No, it doesn't. It just fills the availability of volume because it expands rapidly in all directions, and the only thing that stops that is something to hit against, which is the walls of a container, which is a requirement, antecedent, for gas pressure. You can't have gas pressure without a container.
That was my question for Flatsoid Day. I can hear that hissing in the background, which sounds like you're releasing gas that you've that's under high pressure. What's the one thing you need to make that higher pressure gas so you can vent it like you're doing? There's one antecedent to increase that pressure to be able to for you to use it.
Is it gravity?
That's a hard one. Yes, I can't tell.
Is
But I
that-
know the
yeah,
gas, the gas just stays in a one area by itself. You know, some magical force.
Well, we can hear a pump, right? We know there's a pump involved because we can hear it. But is there anything else attached to the pump that you might require in order to pressurise that gas?
A basket?
Wait, is it that solid barrier thing holding everything in called?
I
a
don't know.
container?
That's kind of what I'm asking. Do you just sweep the gas that you want to pressurise into a corner and then put a motor near it?
No, I'll just go and say, "Gravity be with you," and it stays there.
I see. So, just in case anybody hasn't cottoned on, he requires a container. That's what high pressure gas requires. And you know what? We're breathing it.
So when you put it in this container and then you open a valve, what does the high pressure gas in the container do when it's got a route to get out?
Well, there's a very concise
Does it?
description in the second law of thermodynamics called the free expansion into a vacuum.
Entropy increase? Wow.
Can I have the baller explanation for that, Adam? Yeah,
See,
the
these-
gas pressure checks out how much gravity there is, and then it vents off just a little bit of gas to even out.
I think you'll find
Calculate, yeah.
Dips
Yeah,
their bras. Burn their bras at the Carmen line.
But you guys forget, the ballers say open container is not actually a container. It's just you only really get closed containers. Otherwise, it's not a container.
So a bucket's not a container.
Apparently, it's a universal container, not made for gas.
Yeah, because
So it's not a container.
So they agree with us. So if it doesn't have a lid, it doesn't contain gas. Well, no, you can have a cup in front of you, and it's got as much gas in the cup as it has in the air around it. So it's not suddenly not containing any gas. It's just at the same pressure as everything around it, because it's equalised, because it's not a sealed container. And the same way as if you filled a long pipe with gas, it might hang around for a little bit, but eventually it'll dissipate with time. It's calculable with entropy. That's what entropy is, right? The change
Just
over
like
time.
just like the last demonstration I did, I took an empty open cup and I tried to pour the smoke into it, and it just didn't seem to want to stay there. It kept on rising out.
Bummer. We move on. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Yes.
Can I go back to that one just briefly? Sorry, Nathan, I was away from the phone.
Yeah, feel free.
Special request. Just one thing I have to say on that. This is a little secret that the bowlers may not be aware of, but the majority of our gas that we have in our atmosphere is nitrogen and oxygen, and the volumes that they are created and in our atmosphere is far exceeding the volumes of all the other gases, and they recycle with the earth, with the ground and sea level. So that might have something to do with them not being up high all the time at the same pressure.
Julio Pabon says, if gas went down, go boom boom, cars would never get painted. We would just have multicoloured floors.
Very true, dude.
No, because the paint is not the gas. It still has momentum as a liquid.
Yeah, but it has more
ruined
mass. Owen, but it has more mass, so it should be attracted easier.
Well, you would have to hold the spray paint can closer up to the car, perhaps.
Oh my
That's
God. Thank you very much
I
for the
know,
super chat,
I'm
Julio
the worst.
Pabon. Really appreciate the support. I didn't think it would be in any way controversial reading out your super chat, but clearly it is.
Everything can be controversial.
Let's make a correction. For our win, anything can be controversial.
No, not anything, everything. You're misquoting me.
Fair enough. I didn't think you'd make that statement stronger, but you have. Good for you. Let's move on. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Sorry, assumption of what?
Spherical Earth.
Too many assumptions.
What is that?
The assumption that you're standing on a sphere, people are hanging off it antipodal from your position, spinning in a sky vacuum. With a molten iron
How
core?
can an assumption have a core?
When they made it up themselves.
But where is that within the assumption?
No, it's
So
in the
where is
textbooks.
it exactly? What's the location?
3959.
This is Arwen. This
A
is
little
Arwen
bit.
being controversial.
3959 down and a little bit less.
No, that would be an actual location on Earth. It's in an assumption.
Yeah,
So
within
where
the model,
in the
you
assumption it's
clarified
what's
it.
the
I don't.
actual location being an assumption and all.
Yeah, I don't need to clarify that it's an assumption when you've asked me in context with it being an assumption on their model. You can't have me out on a barrel for that when you're the one clarifying your position as where do they clarify it within their context on their model. I don't have to say, well, on their model, contextualised by them as a reification that they're assuming. You know, I'm just responding, yeah, okay. In their presupposition, they've got it down at the centre of the Earth. What do you want?
Well, I don't want to know where in their train of thought it is. I want to know where it actually is. So where is it actually located then?
No, there
If
isn't.
it is a concept.
There isn't one. It's just made up.
It's all
just
in
made
their
it up.
heads. That's the actual location.
In your heads, yeah. That would be the only location it can be reified from. But reification doesn't imply actual physical existence, so there is no molten iron core.
Okay, can I make an assumption that it's just molten cheese?
You could, if you could come up with a decent enough just so story. I mean, you're going to have to go a long way to beat Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow and depositing its molten iron core to extend the life expectancy of our molten core so that it works within the heliocentric time frame. Now, that's a pretty decent backstory. I mean, it's completely made up, but nevertheless, you're going to have to go some to top that with cheese. Top that with cheese!
Yeah, but you see, the cheese creates the gases.
Now you're just getting ridiculous. Let's get back to the molten iron core.
Doesn't the moon prove that story, Nathan? We wouldn't have a moon if that hadn't have happened.
You could weave that in. Oh, no, they didn't they? My bad. Yes, that's right. Gravitational accretion from the debris of Thea created the moon in their backstory. I mean, yeah, you'll have to do something with weaving in the cheese moon to the molten iron core. Or is that exactly where you were going, Flatzoid?
Yeah, you caught me up.
But if the moon is made of cheese, then I don't know. There would have to have been mammals a very, very long time ago in order for cheese to have actually been formed organically. So mammals existed before Thea hit?
Yeah, but you don't understand. The aliens created it, and the aliens were cows.
That's a good
Space
point.
cows.
That's a glaring
Okay.
flaw. Good point, Arwin. Yeah, cheese isn't
No.
natural, right? So how can it be? How can it be cheese? It's not a natural thing.
But I had a question again about molten iron core. When did that concept first come up? Who originally brought it forth, or who claimed it?
I did just now,
Because-
2 minutes ago.
Hmm?
I did just now.
Oh God! No, come on. In history, when was it first claimed? Who?
I see.
Who came up with that?
I see your question. Your question is who invented, or who postulated, or who first reified this concept of a molten iron core into existence? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, or who put it into all the school books, basically? Who,
I'm going to
who
guess it was
reified
probably the
When
Maitre.
did it happen?
I don't know. Should we look it up? Who's got Google?
Can we agree that
Give me five.
since we had Aries failure, this one could be labeled Dairy's failure since it's not cheese?
Dear, dairy's failure. God.
It's all spoiled. You spoiled it all.
You said it's not natural, but wouldn't they get it all that source from the Milky Way?
God.
The Milky Bar goodness.
That's
Yeah,
a
you
good
got
one,
a point there.
Adam.
The moon
I really-
Woo, Adam.
Look, you
well
throw in a
done.
few cheese puns and suddenly there's chaos. Who's got an on-topic
Are you
point to
trying to
make?
say flat earthers are lactose intolerant?
No, the Milky Way is kind of cheesy.
Look, can we
Yeah, but-
cut the cheese puns? Boom, boom!
Everyone missed my one. I said it's not a Gouda one.
It's a good pun.
There
You're
are
hallucinating
giant
me.
holes in this theory.
You guys
Right.
are hallouming me.
Well, let's cut the cheese puns now. That concludes housekeeping.
There's too many holes in the moon cheese theory.
Too many holes, indeed.
You
Sorry,
can see straight
Flatside.
through it.
It's a failure, but we haven't proven molten iron core, and nobody's rushing to provide us any evidence thereof. Did anybody
I got
Google it in
it.
the meantime?
I got
Oh,
it.
Adam's presenting. Here we go. Let's have a look.
Okay. Discovery, which I think is quite an interesting word to use. Earth was discovered to have had a solid inner core from its molten outer core in 1936 by the Danish seismologist Inger Lehmann, who deduced its presence by studying seismographs from earthquakes in New Zealand.
So
What?
it's fairly new then.
Really?
Very
That's
He
new.
observed
Yeah.
that seismic waves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god! So it is literally P waves and S waves that made everybody in the world write down this story about molten iron core. That's
Does it shock you in the slightest that it's recent? Who is it that was
Me,
exasperated?
I said that. I didn't think it's this recent though.
When you find out that the Big Bang is only about 60 years ago, nothing's shocking anymore, right?
Nah, thank you, Lemaitre.
right.
Exactly.
Molten iron core came before the Big Bang.
Most of these stories have come from relatively recent people who we have photographs of, a lot of them wearing dog collars.
So, molten iron, F. Birch, 1952. A few years later, in 1940, it was hypothesized that this inner core was made of solid iron. And then in 52, Birch published details of analysis data and concluded that the inner core was probably crystalline iron. Probably.
Is it not
So it
mentioned
seems to be a compoundment of assumptions to lead you to your final assumption.
Well,
of
it doesn't give us the answer, though, because what we're trying to find out is where did the backstory, if this molten iron core itself, regardless of the backstory and why it hasn't cooled down yet, which comes later. So the whole purpose of the story of Thea is to explain why, given their time frame, the molten iron core hasn't already cooled down, because it should have done. So they've got to come up with an explanation for why it's still there, given the time frame of the heliocentric system. So they come up with a story of something hitting it at a glancing blow because it's on a path. Well, if this is only, how many years did we say this was?
40s.
40s. So the Thea story will be
80
more
years old.
recent as a justification for somebody who's gone, hold on a second, if we've got this molten iron core, based on my maths, it should have cooled down already. Well, no, Thea smashed into the side. When did that come? Because that's obviously much more recent. I would guess within the last 30 or 40 years, within our lifetimes.
There's another aspect to it as well. As far as I remember, the molten iron core is going in the opposite direction to the supposed rotation of the globe. So that would kind of cause problems for the rotation of the globe, really, if you were to talk about momentum, wouldn't it? Regardless of it being in a vacuum. Now, this is all begging the question nonsense that we'd end up arguing about that means nothing. But just stating.
Yeah, but Brian, in the model, everything can work out.
Yeah, you just walk the runway.
Yeah, and if anything violates with natural law, you just say that doesn't apply to the model. You just don't mention that bit.
Yeah, they even said that, didn't they? That only recently, that it doesn't apply to natural law, and the whole globe model, basically. It's just like it's outside of what we know as normality. You're joking me.
Kind of sounds like they're trying to make the model God.
But just make the
If
model
it
their
doesn't-
world. It's just reification. It's not that. It isn't that far along Flatsoid. It's just reification. They're just turning the non-physical, mathematical, the models, the philosophies into what they think is their real world, concretism. So they've turned that which is not concrete into something concrete by way of thought only, because it isn't concrete. It isn't real. Did you want
So
to
Nathan, before Adam presents on this last topic, so since it doesn't apply to natural law according to some ballers, then how are they converting Einsteinian 4D into Newtonian
They're not.
3D?
They're not.
Didn't Rumpus have a formula for that?
No, he didn't. There won't be one. There isn't one. It can't be done. Adam, you're presenting. Feel free when you're ready.
I just thought I'd see if I can find it. It's great. I like the bullet points. It summarises the validation for the Thea story. Earth spin and moon's orbit have similar orientations. Moon sample indicates that the moon's surface was once molten. That'll be that bit of wood they've got. The moon has relatively small iron core, apparently. Determine that one. The moon has a lower density than the Earth. There is evidence in other star systems of similar collisions resulting in debris disks. I don't know. Giant collisions are consistent with the leading theories of the formation of the solar system, and the stable isotope ratios of lunar and terrestrial rock are identical, implying common origin. Scrolls here, it appears to be. In 1898, George Darwin made the suggestion that the Earth and Moon were once a single body. Darwin's hypothesis was that the molten Moon had been spun from the Earth because of centrifugal forces. So it starts with this by the looks of it, and then, as always, he elaborates. We bring in Thea, prose by English geochemist Alex Halliday.
Got a date?
2000?
No, it can't be that recent. Really?
I'll read it. The name of the hypothesized protoplanet is derived from the mythical Greek titan Thea, who gave birth to the moon, a goddess Selene. This designation was proposed initially by the English geochemist Alex N. Halliday in 2000 and has become accepted in the scientific community.
Wow. Even I'm amazed how recent that is.
So back to Greek gods.
Accepted in the scientific community. Yeah.
So consensus then, not science.
Well, it's an accepted story. It becomes part of
Also,
the rhetoric.
the scientific community is not very scientific if you're just going to just accept it without any hypothesis testing or anything.
Yes, well, accepted by the scientific community sounds a lot better than has become part of our religious rhetoric.
That does sound a lot more honest, though.
No
Were
one
they
wants to
even
hear that.
scientists then?
Well, there's your scientific papers that they use to cite it. Terrestrial accretion rates and the origin of the moon. And number 13 was Oh, this was what I was off for. The big splat, or how our moon came to be. Damn scientific, doesn't it, that?
What is the IV? What is the DV?
It's big splat.
No, let's not try and even feign a hypothesis on their behalf. Look, this is their just so story. Let's just lay it out like they lay it out. The fact that they've already declared it's been accepted by the scientific community, meaningless though that is still, this is their story, right? This is how the moon came to be, according to them, because they made it up themselves.
That book was 2003, and this is February 2000. So it is that recent. Mad.
To me, right, the web of lies gets ever more thin and wider as time progresses, right? So in a way, it's initially a shock that this has come from 2000, but given that we often discuss how we speculate that the origins of the lie are in, 100 to 150 years ago, i.e. pretty damn recent. Now, obviously at the end of the lie, when it's all falling to pieces because the web gets spun out too thinly or too wide, and it all falls to pieces like any lie. Well, you're going to have recent additions to the lie that, obviously, I don't think any of us here were flat earthers when this was being spun out into the public's perception, right? But at least some level we're all aware of it. Isn't that amazing? Maybe it's just me, I don't know. I think that's pretty damn funky. But I'm just saying that it makes sense when you say, well, if we speculate that the lie only started 150 years ago, you'd get to this point where the lies are so thinly pulled out and riddled with contradictions, just waiting to collapse. Because, it doesn't take that long for a lie to become exposed, right? And it amazes me that it hasn't, if it is 150 years ago, when you put that other hat on, take off the shock and awe hat, put back on well, logically, a lie's not going to last that long, right? It's got to fall apart at some point. We're just witnessing it now. Or at least witnessing... No, we're not witnessing the start of it, because there's been objections all along, right? When you look back through history, you can see plenty of people objecting and saying, no, it's not a sphere, this is nonsense. And of course they get ridiculed throughout history as well, like we do.
I'd like to point out there on that part where Darwin latched onto also about how it's accepted. This theory has been, colloquial theory, has been accepted by the scientific community. But I'd like to point out the flat earthers, that we are also the scientific community. They're not a separate body from us. We are the scientific community. Everybody is technically the scientific community.
No, we're not. Only by their standards. No, there is no scientific community. Science is a method, right? There is no community of this method. There might be practitioners of the method who may have used it in the past to validate a cause of an effect. But beyond that, there's no community of science. There might be a handful of people who have actually performed the method. That's it. But no, yeah, by their standards, they say, well, we're a scientific community and our consensus rules. Well, we're saying, what, based on that set of rules that you've laid down about what science is, we also want in? Not here. No, I don't say that at all. In fact, we criticise people on our own side who have recognised the magic trick and try and utilise it to their advantage and start talking about science, even though they're flat earthers and we're all day talking about what science actually really is. But they'll still punt some nonsense story and claim it's science to make their point more or seem more valid.
Yeah, but well, I was actually saying the same thing as you, but in a different way. Well, not exactly the same. Well, yeah, the same basically is what you're saying. Is that the scientific community, everyone's part of this supposed scientific community, if you understand what I mean. It's like, it's been accepted by the scientific community. But sure, it's not accepted by me.
It's just consensus.
What is the scientific community?
Consensus, yeah.
The scientific community. It's if there's some kind of group of special people. No, it's like, it's not accepted. Everyone is technically the scientific community. If you want to go by what, like, if they want to stay the scientific community, that's everybody. We all live on this world, so any claim about this world, everybody has a say in that.
Okay, what they are, as opposed to, I was thinking, how can I best label them? And you could say, well, they're the pseudoscience community. Well, no, because they're not necessarily always saying this is science. You know, they might just detail something like Michio Kaku with all the disclaimers attached about how non-scientific it is. They even chuckle about the potential to even be using scientists, in a real way and utilising this method, which most of them don't know or utilise, right? That's something that could come along. So you can't say pseudoscientists, right? But you can definitely say that they're all authoritarian. They are all in authority when it comes to this particular worldview and the stories attached to the philosophy. Well, that's being an author as opposed to a scientist. So they're the author of this. That's why I say it's just so stories, and it's true because they made it up themselves. Well, what's an authority? Somebody comes up with a way or a means and says that's how it should be done. Do it. That's the authority. Well, they've just authored that, in this case, worldview. It could be a rule. It doesn't matter. But that's what an authority does. So they've engineered a position where they're saying we are the authority. And the reason I objected to Brian is because Brian's saying, well, by that standard, anybody could be the authority. Yeah, that's true. Anybody could put themselves in the position where they make themselves the authority on whatever nonsense they want. But it doesn't make it science, and it doesn't make us a scientific community. It just means that you've put yourself in, like they are, a position of authority to author certain aspects of people's lives. And for me, that makes me quite uncomfortable because I see it happening on our own side. I know I'm just reiterating what I've just said, but there are people who have recognised that magic trick. That is the magic trick of utilising a part of your brain that was trained at a very early age that science proves things. It's an empirical method. And then using that word, science, and some of the associated words like experiment to make your just so story more believable. And that comes with it a lot of power. People will, warm to it because they're trained with it. And we here highlight how the globe has utilised this magic trick of claiming science when they have none, to the point where yesterday we were having a damn good laugh about them, i.e. Rumpus, saying the body of science this and the body of science that whenever asked for any proof of anything. Well, now they don't do that. Well, why? Because we actually ask them for their science. And the same could be said of our own side. So I don't want our side, I don't call it sides, but anybody in particular to suddenly realise that there's a magic trick that's useful, rather than going, isn't it a crime, not a crime, but a wrong that we have been subject to a magic trick where someone says the word science or says the word experiment and then expects us to believe a made-up story just because we instinctually think that that means they've proven it. Well, I'd much prefer people actually recognise what science is and what just so stories are, what philosophy is. That's beyond most normies, though. I've accepted that. In many respects, you've got to sit back and just laugh at the world around you. We're in a conformist society where many of the people who just want to get on with their life don't realise that just wanting to get on with their life means that they are a conformist. Well, you just have to accept that if you're going to have a sane life and not go nuts. Just accept that that's the world around you. But for me personally, now I know that there's a magic trick that could be utilised to my advantage. I could just start talking about science and making plausible stories up, so I was part of the scientific community, right, Brian? Well, I don't want to do that. I'd feel wrong. I'd feel like I was cheating to and lying to anybody who took in what I said and believed it based on their instinctual belief that because I said science or said experiment at some stage, that made what I said true. Well, that's what we fell victim to, and I think it's wrong that we should just say, well, that's a useful tool. Wow, that's a really nice magic wand, that. I'll pick it up and wave it around. Wow, look at that, everyone believes what I'm saying. No, that's just wrong. There is no scientific community, there is no scientific consensus, there is only a method that empirically establishes the cause of phenomena you're studying. That's it.
We've been mugged off into thinking so the designation blah 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 and has become accepted in the scientific community. And we've been mugged off into thinking that adds some extra validity. Like a load of people believe the story. It has no validity when you're talking about science, whether it's one person accepts it or everybody accepts it. It either is scientifically correct and has scientific validity or it doesn't. This is just, as I think, the structuring and the mugging off of how we've been conned into accepting pseudoscience, first of all, as science. And then this is the next stage where actually you're not clever enough to understand this, but lots of clever people say this is definitely right. So that means it has validity when it's not required. We're all intelligent enough to.
And the same thing. Hold on,
So it's just appeal to authority then.
It isn't. Well, an appeal to authority is only invalid if the person is digging through, making tunnels in mountains as opposed to measuring gravity. They're not an authority on gravity. The fact that they appeal to it in some of their explanations doesn't make them an authority. In the same way as your mom telling you to brush your teeth because she knows best isn't making her a dentist. That's where the appeal to authority works. If you've got a subject matter expert, you can prove them wrong with evidence, but you can also appeal to them as a subject matter expert and not be accused of a fallacy when you say, oh, well, you're appealing to the authority on a specific subject.
Sorry, that was my fault. The flats I got kicked. I hit by accident. I hit his name, and the red X came, or the green X came up, and as I was closing the phone, I hit that. Sorry, Flatside.
Oh, well, you just means you can't hear him anymore because he's still here.
Sorry, what? What happened to
Cool.
Okay, let's not get into tech.
I almost kicked Tent as well.
Hold on, just before we get away from
No, I
Adam's
had
point.
a phone call.
Just before we get lost from Adam's point. Right, we've been mugged off. We've been convinced that we had science when we were being told just so stories, originally peppered with words like experiment, and now it's gone beyond that. Now it's got to the point where, look, us up on high, no, and we're telling you what we've all agreed on. Okie dokie, pat you on the head. Well, don't get offended if you're Christians and Catholic, but the priesthood did the same thing with the interpretations of the Bible when we were under a religious rule. Well, an overtly religious rule, which it probably wasn't stated as at the time. Nobody knew that was religion when it was just religion, as we would easily define it now. Back if you were living in those times, you'd have just thought that was the world, right? And anybody told you different, you got in a lot of trouble for it. Well, that sounds familiar, right? Well, in the same way, the priest can give you his interpretation, and it's them deciding what the interpretation is and then passing it on to you. Well, this is no different. They're like priests. They're not doing any science, but they call themselves science.
Exactly. So now when we challenge them and they give us corny answers and we break down all their answers like yesterday's show, oh, well, you got to imagine Einstein's whole theories. It's not proven. So then we say, oh, so what else have you lied to us about? So it seems like from this point, our show, we're uncovering all the lies about the nature of the earth that this so-called science community has hoisted on the Western world. And then we see in other shows with different parameters, they're uncovering other things that are lies in this world. And as you've said, the world's a stage and they're all actors, right? So this is a good thing to uncover with truth all the lies.
It's very like, and it's no coincidence that it's very like the structure of the Catholic Church. Because they'll start telling you who and what God is, and what God says, and what you should do because God said it, and blah, blah, blah. And they'll change the story if they need to. And it just happens to be Jesuit priests, which gave the heliocentric model, everything it has more or less. The Big Bang came from Jesuit priests. It's the whole structure of it screams Catholic Church. It's like the Catholic Church and the so-called scientific community are one and the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
no,
you're right.
You're absolutely right there.
Yeah.
Go on, Fletcher.
No, we're just agreeing with you and nodding along, but we've all, I don't know if we all have, but I certainly have looked through the history of where this narrative has come from. And as I said earlier, it's all men in dog collars. That's where it's all come from.
Dog collars. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, the Bible.
Bible's.
Well, go on, Adam.
I'm going to say not just dog collars, as you alluded, and Brian said, it's the Catholics and fundamentally Jesuit line is the introduction, from what I can see, of this ball model. And I think, as we were saying earlier, and being shocked by Thea being 2000, this is always portrayed to us as if we've always known it, and the Jesuit model at the time, and you go back to the turn of the century, people, when we look into it, didn't necessarily believe that the Earth, this Copernican model, yet we're told now that they did believe it back then. And this is part of that whole historical narrative that gets us to the point now with these power systems where as we compare, it's the same thing, isn't it? Because it's got the same origin, and so that's why it has such a similar methodology of control and conning of people into false authority, because it's of the same origin from the same people.
Well, history, according to Fox's Book of Martyrs, as well as other sources, when the Bible was available to people outside the control of the Catholic Church started killing those people and burning those Bibles. It doesn't sound like this organization really is standing for God. It sounds like, oh, you're going to get a Bible? You're going to read and see that we've been lying to you? No, we can't have that. So we're going to kill you because we want to keep our control. This is exactly what it is, because I'll bring it to modern date. Both my wife and I were raised Catholic, and we both challenged the priests at our local church, and they said, no, we have to read the Bible and tell you what it says. You can't. Told to our face. They're just about control. They don't represent God.
Yeah.
In the Catholic Church will give you the impression that they've had a serious amount of, let's say, spiritual control, or being the spiritual leaders for hundreds of years all over the world. But that's not true. If you go back into the history, about 150 to 170 years ago, around the world, there was a lot of turmoil going on. And Ireland alone was in a famine. So the Catholic Church, what they did is this is going to be very similar to what the supposed science community is doing today. They said, you can have food if you come to us. So you won't starve to death if you come to us. That's what the Catholic Church did. So
very familiar.
It's very similar in the world we're in now, where it's like, you can have a lot of things if you just do what we want you to do from the scientific community. I'm not going to go into the details of, you know what I'm talking about.
We can all read right between the lines, given that I'll state the date, so it's the first part of 2021. So I'm sure if you're watching this live or very soon after it's been recorded, people can read between the lines, Brian. So absolutely, there's a direct parallel. With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
That was you wrote that, did you? Flats, I didn't know if you wrote it or not. So I take it you did, now you have to tell me.
Yeah, I did it.
Okay, I'm just going to get it up on screen. The first thing with that is, I understand what you're doing, and you're doing what the ballers won't do. But your observation is, right, this is a scientific hypothesis for gravity. Your observation is, object falls to the ground with acceleration due to mass attracting another mass. But you don't observe a mass attracting another mass. You just observe.
Yeah, that's my whole
falling.
point. Yeah, no, that's my whole point. I'm trying to just show them how absurd their claim is. Understand? And why it isn't actually a hypothesis to begin with.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I was wondering why you put that in, because it's like, why did Flats say, if I was thinking, if you wrote that, why would you put that in? But it makes a bit more sense now that you have to say that why you did it. But if you were going to create an actual hypothesis for that, right? Let's say I observe an apple falling from a tree, right? Let's go back to the supposed Isaac Newton observation. Apple falls from tree. Okay. My independent variable is that I think a force is pushing or pulling this apple to go towards the ground. and my dependent variable will be the apple falling towards the ground. Okay, so the controls will be the same. You control the time. Time will be a control. You won't control time. It's just be an ongoing thing. Time will be controlled, the temperature, things like that. But the problem you have then is you can't do a hypothesis test because like you'll never even get to your null, which would be a force is not pulling or pushing the apple to go towards the ground, because what you have to do then is your independent variable. How do you manipulate this force? You have to find the force first. And how you manipulate something you can't find. So you can't find it. There's no way to manipulate it. So you can't do a hypothesis test. You understand what I mean? It can't be done.
Yeah,
that's exactly my point.
You can find it. Yeah. Well, I don't want to be jumping on it in the live show because I didn't know whether you wrote it or what you meant by it or anything like that. So look, I'll leave you speak about it because you wrote it. So I'll leave you support what you wrote.
Well, I think, Brian, you went to the core of the argument quite well.
Not getting a response out of that side, it seems.
Standing is not going to help clarify things.
I thought it was an appealing argument, Arwen.
Yeah, a gala performance, maybe. Gala apple. Yeah, but that's the problem. Well, you can claim there's a force causing something. Now, I know the mainstream science don't assert that force anymore, but it doesn't matter if someone wants to claim a force, a hypothesis, or an effect. They have to support that with a cause. If you claim that the cause is a force, then you have to find the force, manipulate it, and you can't find a force that isn't there. So you can't even do a hypothesis test.
Yeah, but they can't even figure out what mass is in the first place to say mass is attracting mass.
Well, mass is a made-up thing because they can't find a force. You understand what I mean? They make up mass. Mass is just part of this. Like, if to prove mass is real, is to prove gravity is real. To prove gravity is real as a force is to prove that mass is real. They can't prove either are real, so they convolute the two. And they take all the things that actually do create the weight of an object or a substance, and they call all them mass, and then call weight gravitational acceleration, the very thing they can't do a hypothesis test to prove, because you can't find it. You can't find it because it's not there. The whole thing, it goes around in a circle, but it never reaches a conclusion because it can't.
Yep, you need a phenomena. Correct.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying, Brian. They basically split up the concept into separated things, while in physical reality they can't be separated. And then they just keep convoluting the deduced concepts so much that, it just gets lost in translation, that they're actually derived concepts.
We only have weight. Everything else is a mathematical construct based upon a theology of gravity. So you then subdivide the only thing we can measure, and you break it down into two components, of which neither can you measure.
Well, exactly. I mean, it all starts with a claim of the cause of weight. It all comes back to the cause of weight. What causes weight? The amount of density of matter within the confines of an object's or substance's volume, that dictates the weight it will have, or let's say a calculable weight on a scales, that dictates that. But they wanted to take those volume, density, matter and move it over to the side, call all that and other things, by the way, mass, and then state that weight is caused by gravitational acceleration. So when you go to the moon in the heliocentric model from 106 years ago, not now, then, and I'll explain that in a moment, then your weight and your mass won't be equal. So they want to claim that when I'm on the moon 106 years ago, that my weight will be only 1/6 due to only 1/6 gravity due to the size of the mass. But my mass, there we go again, size of the mass of the moon, but my mass will be equal. No, my mass will be equal to as it is on Earth, but my weight will be different. So they convolute the whole thing. And 106 years ago, this is why I jump on the whole claim by Einstein of the word, or use of the word effect by Einstein. He doesn't really detail, like the effect causes the effect of the curvature of spacetime. So that doesn't state that the size of a mass in their narrative will give a differing amount of this effect, because it's not a force anymore, gravity. It's now an effect according to mainstream science from 106 years ago. So the effect that they're calling, which is the curvature of spacetime, that doesn't state that this effect will be stronger on a bigger mass than it is on a smaller mass. And there I am using mass. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, so they actually, the whole claim of us being only 1/6 of our weight on the moon in the heliocentric model went out 106 years ago. Because now it's an effect, and there's no determining of how this effect will create a bigger or a lesser, I don't know, effect. You know, there you go again. It's a circle on a mass. It's just total and utter nonsense. What is the cause of weight? Density, matter, volume. That's the cause of weight. It can be proven all day, every day. That's literally the end of it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But the only reason you would have a lower weight on the moon is because you've accepted that weight equals mass times gravity, which still has yet to be proven or demonstrated. You know, they take you straight to accepting there's only weight. There is only weight. That's all you measure. Then suddenly there's a leap of faith.
Yeah, that's what, when they say weight, they mean gravity. As soon as they say weight, they're invoking gravity. Correct, Adam?
Not so much that. That's the point that they've took us past there. We now worry that weight invokes gravity. It doesn't. Weight and mass are the same thing to a chemist, because there is only weight, mass, yeah, what you weigh. There is no such thing as the term mass that they term as mass, if you see what I mean. This distinction between weight and mass that they generate, which I don't as a chemist, the same thing. Put some on the scales, it's the same weight, mass, some, you know, old school. So I used to use weight a lot. Used to have atomic weights, not atomic masses, you know. So it's a mind game to accept that there is a difference between mass and weight. There isn't. They've tried to mug you into thinking that mass is something distinct of itself, even though it's not demonstrable. It's only ever a derivation from weight.
And even
that's the only bit of reality.
The useful formula in our medium when applying this to a solid is all well and good, but it falls apart as soon as you get to the amount of, let's call it how you've termed it, the amount of matter in a gas. The whole thing falls to pieces.
Yeah. Because they would claim it has mass, therefore it has to do what it doesn't do, which removes the force for me. It shows there isn't mass times G.
Exactly.
The G's not there.
As soon as you get to the point where there isn't mass times G, then they have to work around in their own cognition how to right that wrong or square that circle. And then you get literal people of what I would consider a fair degree of intelligence. As much as I normally berate Thunderfoot as a clown and an idiot, it's a person of reasonable intelligence, right? He's not just some thicko. But his cognition and the logic that it must have infers that there must be a gas going down, go boom boom, like solid bonded bouncy balls poured into a fish tank. That's where the logic takes you. Because it's universal, right? Well, no, it just falls on its arse when it gets to gas. Falls on its arse probably wasn't the best thing to say when applying it to gas not going down, go boom boom, right?
Falls up its arse.
Falls up its own arse.
But do you see what I'm saying about 106 years ago? because Einstein said that the uneven distribution of mass causes the effect of the curvature of space-time. And he never detailed what this effect was. Gravity is an effect, then, according to Albert Einstein. But there was no that I can find, could be wrong in their vernacular, that there's nowhere where they can actually speak within Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity about how this effect will affect a mass, a bigger mass, or a smaller mass. There we go, using mass. Do you know what I mean? A bigger, let's say, rock won't have this effect more than a smaller rock. So weight and mass in their vernacular, they won't be different on the moon in their vernacular since 106 years ago.
Well, I think they can calculate it as long as you do one at a time. So you could calculate the first mass, then calculate the second mass within Einstein's reified mathematics. But it's only a problem when you introduce a second mass. That's why it gets boiled down to the question for them about using Einstein's field equations for two bodies. That would be Earth and Moon in relation to the tides. Well, in other words, what you've described, they could actually do. They could just do it one at a time. Or use the Rumpus's technique and just say, well, I'm just going to dilute this down into three space and just use a bit of Newton.
Okay, how do you show that an effect is stronger due to the size of a mass? Or weaker due to the size of a mass in their vernacular?
Just
You've used the word
imagination.
You've used the word show. How do you show? No. Calculate. How do they calculate?
But how do they even calculate that? They can't calculate it because they're still only speaking about one mass, so they can't calculate it. Because the whole claim is that up to 106 years ago was that my weight and my mass will be different if I'm on the Earth or on the Moon in their vernacular. My weight would be 1/6, whereas my mass would be similar, would be equal to what it is on Earth in their vernacular. But the effect that Einstein speaks about is just an effect. How does that affect? How did they determine that effect will be stronger? How do they have a stronger effect? I mean, how do they determine that? Just because a mass, so using the word mass again, is bigger, especially because they can't deal with more than one. They're dealing with one all the time. How do they show that effect is more on the Earth than it is on the Moon? Whatever this effect is, because he never detailed it.
Well, there you go again, asking them.
It curves space-time.
There you go again, asking to show it when it's a reification fallacy. So they're never going to show it.
I know they bothered to take a set of golf clubs one time when they pretended to go to them. Did they ever take a set of scales and give some, fake demo of 1/6 gravity on a set of scales? You thought that would have been...
That's Adam being a smart ass. Okay. That's faking it, though, right? That's not showing it.
I said they went and faked golf.
Faked. I didn't hear you say faked. I'm sorry. I take it back.
But what I'm saying is, if you were going to do some fake, that would be a prime thing to fake, wouldn't it? Just there's a set of scales, and there's me 1 kilogram weight weighing. Quick bit of maths, so 6 of that. Do you get me? That would be an obvious thing, as well as bouncing in lower gravity to demonstrate the story.
And I'm sure they could definitely supply that.
Seeing.
They could definitely supply that as a forced hallucinations to keep up the delusion. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and hopefully becoming a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.